How about if I just start at the beginning? you could be honest.
Because you know what? They have the sweat equity that went into that memory that they're making with their friends and family. And that's what's important with this. And that's what the I Am Real World's about.
Well, that's a great question. You know, one of the best things about a spring food plot is you get a second chance if it fails.
Chasing Giants with Don Higgins, brought to you by buyafarm.com, your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. By tapping into Don's years of experience, dedication, and commitment, Chasing Giants focuses on the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails. Now, here is Don and co-host Terry P.
Here. Well, welcome everyone to Chasing Giants episode 97. Don Higgins, we got a little bit different look for today's episode. Those people who are watching on YouTube are looking at our ugly mugs instead of just a logo on the screen.
Yeah, I can see your face. It's not like talking on the phone, and you had to put some clothes on for this, didn't you, Terry?
I'm not going to confirm or deny I have pants on right now, but hopefully you don't make me do something that I have to stand up. But welcome to everyone to episode 97. It is the day after Christmas, 12/26. We hope that everyone had a great Christmas. Just to explain a little bit about what we're doing here, we're going to apologize in advance. We're going with a little bit different format. The YouTube audience for this podcast is continuing to grow, and we think that we can offer some more insight and tools if we can show and share screens and watch videos, maybe look at aerial properties in the future. We are not going to get away from the audio side, especially our friends listening on MTech. They're still going to have the audio, and your Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio is still going to be downloaded, but we are going to be experimenting with some video side. So apologize in advance. Don and I aren't the best when it comes to technology stuff.
We have no idea what you're going to see before this is over. It might take us a few episodes to get the bugs worked out of the system, but eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, so feel free to comment if you're watching on YouTube, if you like this. Like I said, I'm going to be playing with audio quite a bit, so if it's choppy, if it's not as clear, bear with us. We're gonna get through it, but I think in the long term, this is a big step for us in 2022. We're just using this as kind of our first wing it, if you will. But first, I guess let's talk a little bit about Christmas, Don. You spent, I think, time with your family on Christmas Eve, and maybe talk a little bit about what Santa Claus brought you.
Well, I guess I was bad this year, Terry. I didn't get anything, but no, I had a great time with family on Christmas Eve. We decided this year that we were not going to get each other gifts. Instead, we're going to go on a family vacation next summer, and that's going to be kind of our gift to each other, I guess, and spend a week with each other on the beach in South Carolina. Now, I can promise you that you're not going to be seeing any beach pictures with Don.
Well, I'm going to, since I know your two son-in-laws, there will be a bounty or some type of reward if we end up getting a picture of Don Higgins walking the beach in South Carolina with a Speedo on.
Well, I can promise you they will not come through. That will not happen.
Well, I got, maybe this will come in handy. We opened up presents, and not only did one person in my family get me these, but two. I got a new pair of undies.
Wow. Since we're on video, are you going to model them for us before the show's over?
No, I'm not going to put these on, but yeah, I got me a new pair of undies. So maybe you could wear these while you're on the beach down in South Carolina. How about that?
I doubt if that happens either, just to be honest about it.
But yeah, believe it or not one person in my family thought that they were funny, and they would get a kick out of giving me that. But two different people at two different Christmases on each side of the family got me that. So
they know you well.
Yeah, I did do something. Now YouTube is probably going to frown on this, but I want to show everybody. I did. Let's see if that comes through. for those people listening there, that is a new Vortex Razor red dot sight that I put on a Glock 9mm. So if anybody's ever used a red dot quick acquisition sight on a pistol, really, really cool. I've really enjoyed shooting it so far. So that was one of my Christmas presents to myself. So if somebody's interested in that, go out to Vortex Optics and check them out. But this Vortex Razor, very good price point. So, but yeah, that was my Christmas present to myself, or one of them. I also got a level 4 plate carrier with body armor, but hopefully we won't ever need that.
I can say that if we haven't already ran off all the liberals, we just did. So,
So, well, anyway, you guys wanted video. We're all in first episode. What do you think about that?
they may regret what they asked for before this show's over.
Well, I'm going to switch gears real quick and hopefully share the screen of our 2021 family picture. Hopefully everybody can see that a little bit. You can talk a little bit. We shared this on both of our social medias yesterday.
Yeah, I started to count how many pictures was on that, and I quit. There's several hundred, maybe even 1,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't honestly know. I'm not real good at Photoshop, and the way this works is you just dump all the pictures into I think they call it an animation or automation or something inside of Photoshop. So I know one guy said that his picture was in there twice. I guess he spent the time to zoom in and navigate around. So I don't know. I made the photo the size that I wanted to make it to share it on social media, and it positioned all the pictures. So it might have some people in there twice. Some people might have accidentally got left out. We apologize about it. But the main message of that picture was that we wanted to do something to thank everybody and kind of draw all of us together at the close of this year, just because the listeners who have made this really, really special for us.
Yeah, for sure. And it just kind of shows also how big our family is, if you will. I can't go anywhere anymore without somebody saying something about chasing giants, and they usually ask about Terry.
Yeah, so it's pretty special to us. We've tried really hard to stay true to who we are, but I think what draws the people that I didn't just run off by showing a picture of a video of a handgun on here. I think those are the people that do listen or now watch. They're the ones that make this special, because they get to be part of these episodes instead of just us just ranting and raving about politics and hunting and whatever else we want to. I think it's cool that everybody gets to participate with us the way they do.
Well, I think one of the things that's made this podcast so successful is, right out of the gate from very first episode, we took listener submitted questions. And yeah, I think that's probably most people's favorite segment of the podcast. And, we're getting more questions now than we ever have. And we consider everyone out there part of the Chasing Giants family.
Yeah, now every podcast out there is going to start asking for listener submitted questions now. So I seem to copy pretty much everything we do.
It's already started. There's even some already giving free T-shirts with listener submitted questions. So what do they say about imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, or something like that?
I don't know that anybody's ever being, I don't even know how you say it, but flattering us. I don't think that's what they're trying to do, but that's okay. No. You stayed pretty close on the consulting trail this week, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I think 3 properties, but I stayed pretty close to home. But getting ready to hit the road again tomorrow morning. And
yeah, you posted this picture on social media. I thought that was pretty interesting. You said that you were pretty sure that it was real world switchgrass before you even walked down to it and asked the landowner.
Yeah, we came over a little hill, and this was planted in a bottom. And as soon as I seen it, I was 95% sure it was real world switchgrass, just by the height of it and how well it was standing. And it didn't take me about 30 seconds to ask them what variety it was, and of course it was real world. So I was happy to see that, and they were real happy with it. In fact, they're going to be planting some more.
How old of a stand was that, Don?
To be honest, Terry, I don't remember, but I know it was frost seeded into soybean stubble,
Yep.
and they actually frost seeded it into a little bit of snow. There was snow on the ground when they did it, and they got a fantastic stand.
Yeah, and we're going to be having to go over some of those tips and tricks for frost seeding, stratifying, and preparing for native grass seed here. Starting after the first of the year, everyone's been purchasing switchgrass on the Real World website, so we'll be giving some tips on that. If people visit the Real World website and go to our blog page, all of those articles, you spent a lot of time a couple years ago writing specific articles for tips and tricks as it relates to all that. So if you can't wait and you're interested in reading up on that, go to the blog page on the Real World site. Have you told me that you were going to spend Christmas morning actually checking trail cameras? Did you end up doing that?
I did. I didn't get out till after lunch, but this is the second year in a row that I've spent Christmas Day out in the deer woods by myself scouting for the next season. And I'm probably not going to kill a buck this year. I am going to head to Iowa later this week. They got a cold front coming through, and I'm only going to get in 1 or at the max 2 days of hunting in Iowa. Then I'm done for the year. I'm on consulting, from there on out till spring. And but man, I'm excited about next year already because I was counting up yesterday. I've got somewhere between 12 and 15 bucks that are still alive that are at least 160 inches and at least 4 years old right now, and a couple of them could really be something special. So let's just say there's a dozen bucks in that category. Well, I think the odds are pretty good that at least one of those dozen bucks is going to have a nice growth spurt of 20 inches or so.
Yeah, out of that many, some of them will probably stay close to what they are, and maybe one or two of them could explode and push that magic number for you. But yeah, that many making their way through gun season, that makes it pretty special for you.
Yeah, and the big takeaway here for the listeners should be the lesson that I could have easily shot 2 bucks this year that would have hit 170 inches, and that's not what I'm after anymore. Because and if they'd have been 6 years old, I'd have been happy to do it. But the ones that I knew that were the biggest were 4-year-olds, and those 170, 160 to 170 inch 4-year-olds are the ones that could be real giants when they're 6 years old. So I just and a lot of people as they get into a hunting season, into the late season, their goals or what they would shoot drops. They're willing to shoot a smaller buck than they would say in
Right.
October. I'm kind of just the opposite. As we get past the gun season, when these bigger bucks are still alive, I'm thinking, wow, he's made it through gun season. His odds of making it next year and being bigger are really good. So I find it harder as we get into the late season. I find it harder to shoot a buck or to bring myself to shoot a particular buck than I do earlier in the year.
Right, but you've also documented another year of history about where that buck is potentially bacheloring, where he's shifting to, what annual patterns is he showing, so that next year you got another piece of the puzzle to understand that consistency of where he's going to be. This deer, I'm gonna share my screen one more time. I shared this picture on social media this week. This was a buck that we collectively, between a couple of us, have pictures of this deer for the last 2 years, and I intentionally did not post a clear picture of him. I have a lot of pictures of him that I could show that would show a little bit more detail. But this is an example of a 4-year-old. I've talked about this deer multiple times on the podcast that I could have shot him 4 times the first week of November as a 4-year-old. I don't know, he's probably in the 50s, but this isn't the level of deer you're talking about, but same holds true. I still have a tag open in Kentucky and Illinois. I could go hunt this deer tomorrow, which I think a lot of people probably would, just because it's gotten late in the year and they want to fill that tag.
Yeah, and it brings up another interesting point, Terry. I've got a new policy, kind of started it a few months ago, but I am no longer going to post a buck's picture on social media if I know that buck's alive. If he's dead, whether I shoot him or somebody else, yeah, then I might share pictures. But I'm no
Yep.
longer sharing a picture on social media of a buck that's still alive.
Yeah, trust me, I don't do it either, but I'm pretty sure that this one's safe because I'm not even telling people what state he's in. You can narrow it down to 2, but I'm okay with sharing this one, but because of the story behind it. So I passed this deer 4 times in November. He disappeared. I thought for sure that the neighbors had shot him, but as you can see, Christmas Eve got a picture of him. So I was pretty stoked about that. But yeah, I think for both of us, the next year, because we took the approach that we both did this year of not having something that met our goal at the beginning by holding out, we have a better chance, even better chance to achieve our goal and blow it out of the water, next year.
Well,
Building
I think
for national championships, right?
that's what sets us apart from, a lot of the other folks in the hunting industry is that we're not going to be pressured into shooting deer just to put deer on the ground and get pictures for promotion and such. We've got our goals, and our goals are going to be the same whether we had a podcast or didn't have a podcast, whether we was in the hunting industry or didn't. That has no effect on the goals that we have as hunters.
Yep. So for those of you who hadn't seen him, that's the buck that I got that was wounded that I shot in Illinois this year. I did get his age back. He was 4.5. So unfortunately, he didn't get another year. But I know a lot of people have not seen it, and the people listening on MTech can't see it. But that's him, just an 8-pointer that probably needed to be shot anyway. But he was in rough shape when I shot him. But I did get the age back on him from deerage.com, and he ended up being 4.5. So close the chapter on that bad boy.
You definitely did the right thing.
Somewhere. Yep. I want to talk a little bit about it's time to get real segments that we started doing earlier. And for the folks that saw it on YouTube and on social media, we got a lot of really good feedback from that platform that we started.
Well, with Real World Wildlife Products, our marketing approach, if you will, has always been education. It started way back just teaching people how to read a seed tag, what germination rates and inert matter and seed coating was about. And, we actually started a trend. There's more people doing that today. A lot of startup seed companies, small local type companies are doing the same thing. But this let's get real approach that is kind of your brainchild, Terry, for marketing for 2022, and this series of videos that we just started last week. I forget how many you're going to have in the series, but
5.
It just continues our approach of using education to help our customers be more successul.
I think at the end of the day that we're confident enough in our product that if we teach people the honest truth about something and they truly learn, we have a good chance of earning their business. But if they choose still not to buy our product, that's fine. We're just not going to lead with the gimmicks and selling through celebrity social influencers. If we do work with people, but if they can't articulate the science behind our product, then there's no use us even partnering with them. So that's why we keep our sponsorships and pro staff and everything to a minimum, because we're only dealing with people that can do testing for us and then also elaborate on the science behind the product.
Yeah, that's right, Terry. Anybody can say, hey, I plant brand X seed and it's the best out there. We see it all the time. And then next year I'm planting brand Y seed and it's the best out there. And, anybody can do that, but not everybody can bring our message home, teaching the end customer how to get the most out of that product.
I can just imagine how much seed Real World would sell if you took selfies in the tree stand with duck lips and then saying how good the seed was that you were hunting over.
I don't know. That might be a scary picture. Might drive away more customers than it attracts.
Well, if you're listening to this and you have not seen these video segments, we publish them on Real World social media, and they also are videos on the Chasing Giants YouTube page. Now, for all of the listeners that are listening on MTech, we're going to play that audio from that episode of It's Time to Get Real at the conclusion of this episode. So we'll probably run as usual around an hour, hour and 10 minutes on this episode. And then immediately I will put the audio from that episode on this. And this, just to explain it, this is Don, Wes, and Dwayne Hopkins talking about how supply chain and the growing season in 2021 affected the food plot industry. So there's a lot of new things that just the supply chain and shipping challenges and the weather in different parts of the country has affected what people are selling on the open market this coming year. The next episode that we're going to be doing is going to be talking a little bit about miscanthus, when we plant it, some tips and tricks if you have first-year miscanthus in the ground right now, how we can protect it from dying off in the winter due to cold weather the first year. And then we're also going to get into a lot of detailed analysis from our 2021 pilot program. And that's going to be Enlist soybeans and NutriCrave corn. We're going to talk about a new product that we're introducing this year into the pilot program. We might even get a little sneak peek of that today, but that's going to be the next episode. And we're also going to touch on the shortage of fertilizer and chemicals. So stay tuned to those. The week after we release those, for our folks that are listening to MTech, we're going to just put that audio on the end of the Chasing Giants podcast so everyone has a chance to listen to it. We think that's the best choice, right, Don?
Absolutely. We want everybody to have a chance to hear that.
Yep. So instead of doing an additional episode of Chasing Giants or anything like that, we'll just tack it on to the end. I want to give a shout out right now to a friend of ours named Keith Stutzman. He actually clarified for us the call-in number for those people that are using call-in services. I'm going to tell each of you to grab a pen as you're listening right now. He actually told us that with this number, not only can you go back and listen to previous episodes that you may have missed, but if you have to hang up, when you call back in, it'll pick up back at the exact same spot. So especially on this episode, where it might end up being an hour and 40 minutes, somebody might not be able to listen to the whole thing. So I'm gonna give you guys that number. I think if to go back and listen to previous episodes, Keith said you press 3. But I'm sure you can figure that out. That number is 1-978-599-7610. That's 978-599-7610. So for all of our friends that are listening on call-in service, check that number out. No subscription, free of charge. You can go back and listen to old episodes. And also, you can pick back up where you left off. So I think that might be a handy tool for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks are going to take advantage of that.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen here one more time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Real World Land Management Guide, which just became available. Talk about supply chain. Don, you can talk a little bit about it. We had a hard time finding paper for this product that we started last year.
Yeah, we had already contracted with one printer to print the land management guide, and at the last minute we were told they couldn't get paper to get it or to print it. And we scrambled and finally got them printed, and they just came out like right before Christmas. So we were late mailing our dealer packets. If you're a Real World dealer and you have not yet got your dealer packet for 2022, it is in the mail and you should have it in the next couple of days. But there is a photo, if you can see the video, of the new land management guide for 2022. One thing I want to throw out there is we do allow you to go on our website and purchase those for $3 a piece, which is basically just to cover the postage to ship it to you. But if you place an order, they're free. So if you're ordering seed, you don't have to order the land management guide as well. we throw one of those in free with every order.
Yeah, so you will get this one with your order, and your dealers will have some, each of those. But that's just a fantastic looking specimen right there. For those people listening on podcast platforms, I'm zoomed in on West Elks right there.
I'm not sure. Maybe that one should have been culled out of the herd, Terry, when he was a youngster.
Oh shoot. So yeah, if you do not want to wait until you order your online order or visit a dealer, you can visit the Real World website and purchase that it's free, but we just charged the shipping cost of $3. I made it available I believe a couple days ago, and it's crazy how many people have already gotten on there and purchased it. And the people listening to this podcast are also going to get the sneak peek that our soybeans and corn are now available. So if you want to go ahead and get your order in for not only Generation 2 series soybeans or Enlist soybeans or NutriCrave corn, those products are now open on the website. So I got a really cool announcement that we're going to make. You shared it on your social media today, and that is going to be an event that you guys are going to do for charity at the Shipshewana show next year. And I'm going to share my screen now. For those of you watching it, I already warned Don of this. The music that was used on this video is obviously copyrighted, so I have muted it. And Don and I are just going to talk about it as it plays, but I'll let you kind of explain what this event's going to be.
Well, this event is going to take place at the tag out. Our distributor in Northern Indiana puts on a show every year in Northern Indiana. It used to be called the Michiana show, a sportsman show. I'm not sure what it's called now, but Tony LaPratt, land manager, whitetail consultant, probably has consulted on more properties than any other consultant. Great guy. He's there at that show every year, as am I. And last year, one of the show promoters asked me if I'd be willing to get on stage with Tony and have a friendly debate. And I said, well, if Tony's for it, I'm for it. And so they put the details together, and Tony and I are going to have a little debate on stage. They're selling tickets. All proceeds are going to go to two charities. It's going to be split between Lester's Feet, and then I guess Tony has some kind of charity for wounded warriors, and half of the proceeds will go to Tony's charity. But it's all for a great cause, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining. Tony's a great guy. We agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some, and it'll be a chance for us to hopefully put on a good show for the audience.
Yeah, I think the overall theme of this is going to be a positive one for the outdoors. It's definitely not to bash or throw somebody under the bus or get personal or defensive. It's two very, very accomplished land managers and consultants that are going to go through there. Like you said, there's some things that you all definitely agree on, but then there's some core fundamentals that people are going to get to listen to both sides of it and kind of, I don't know, evaluate what they believe in. But I think it's going to be a great opportunity. The folks that tag out are going to be releasing more information on this event in the coming weeks. The tickets are not available until January 3rd. We've already gotten a ton of information to ask if it's being recorded. I want everybody to understand this is not a Chasing Giants event. The promoters of this event don't have anything to do with Chasing Giants. So I don't see any way that we're going to be able to share the audio from this for this event. This is going to be a live event at a trade show that tickets will be sold to. So just understand that this is not us putting this on. This is Don doing this with a different set of promoters as an event for a trade show. So I think it's going to be pretty cool, though. Tony and you talked about it at the last show, and both of you seem very excited about it.
Yeah, like I said, Tony's a great guy. And one thing I would throw out there is if you're interested in going, you may want to get your tickets early because when I talked to Leon in the last week or two, he was saying that there is busloads of people planning on coming to this event from Ohio, amongst other places. So they're expecting a really big crowd. I'm not sure, how many people that arena holds, but if you want to go, I'd be getting my ticket soon.
Yeah, don't assume that you can just show up at the show and then walk over and buy your ticket at the gate. We don't know. With busloads of people coming in, like Leon's saying, could be kind of tough to get a ticket for it. So again, if you're interested in going, I'm not sure how much the tickets are yet, to be honest with you, but they're going to publish all that on January 3rd and then put more promotional videos out that we'll obviously share on this podcast also. So with that, if you don't have anything else, we'll move on to the buyAfarm.com property of the week.
BuyAFarm.com is your source for farm, recreational properties, rural homes, and more. Now, here's Don Higgins with this week's featured property.
Okay, this week's featured property is an online auction for 162 acres with a home. It's in Pope County, Illinois. The auction will start on January 11th and ends on January 18th. But this property is located right on the Ohio River. There's 3/4 of a mile of Ohio River frontage on this property, and it's real close also to the Shawnee National Forest. The property is very secluded. It's located at the end of a dead-end road. The home was a stick-built home. It's 2,200 and some odd square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, built up on a bluff overlooking the Ohio River. There's a pond that's over 1.5 acres, stocked with fish. There's a little over 45 acres of tillable ground on the property. There's an area that's been set up to flood for duck hunting. There's some sizable timber that possibly could be harvested, but a timber evaluation has not been done. Just a lot of outstanding outcroppings of rocks and different formations on the property. It's located 28 minutes from Paducah, Kentucky, or 53 minutes from Marion, Illinois, and 1 hour to Kentucky Lake or Lake Barkley. So it sounds like a sportsman's paradise, maybe a vacation home or some kind of a retreat, or you could actually live there too. So if you're looking to retire, I think right there on the Ohio River, you would have plenty to do. You could get in a boat and you could go clear to the Gulf of Mexico if you wanted, or up to St. Louis, or 1,000 different places. So lots of potential for this property. If you've got any interest, the agent is Don Bailey, and Don's phone number is 618-919-1031. And I'm sure Don would be glad to show you the property or answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, Don wasn't even expecting me to show the BioFarm segment. Like I said, we're playing around with some of the settings on this online video, but I pulled up the BioFarm.com property. It's really easy to find for those of you who don't know how to use BioFarm. We just go into search, and you can go to counties. This one was in Polk County. Is that right, Don? Polk?
Yes. Yep.
So just apply that filter if you're watching how to do this, search properties, and there's the property right there, and that takes you right in. So nice video. Since I'm running so many different wireless things right now, it's a little stalled out, but you can watch a video tour of the property, look at aerials. So head on over to BioFarm. This is their website, and here is Don Bailey's contact information, but it has all of the details about the property, the auction. Hope you guys go over to BioFarm and check that out.
Well, this video thing is going to open up all kinds of opportunities for us, Terry.
Hopefully it all works. That's what I'm worried about.
Send you pictures ahead of time and everything, except bucks that are still alive.
Yeah, that's the goal, is so we can, like when we talk about a property and talk about the access, where we would go, how the wind was going, how the buck was using the wind, we can throw that up on the screen and have the people watch. So I think it's going to be a great tool for us. And hopefully those of our sponsors who have partnered with us, like BioFarm, we can even expand for them and have different tools that they can showcase properties, or other sponsors talk about new products that they come out. I hope it's going to be a benefit to not only the listeners, but our sponsors also.
Right.
All right. So head on over to BioFarm. We appreciate, We're going to be talking next week about some of the changes with our sponsors, but Biofarm was the one that really stood behind us to get this thing going, and our loyalty to them is very important. So we got some cool things that we're going to be providing as kind of tools for people considering real estate next year with those guys. So again, thank you so much to all the folks at Biofarm for their support of the podcast. We hope everybody heads on over and follows them on their social media. All right, with that, what do we got next? Do you want to go to the listener submitted questions?
Well, I picked out 4 of them, so I think you even
All
did
right.
some magic with video, right?
I don't know what I did, but hopefully everybody can see the first one from Jim Smith.
Yes, sir. Our first question is from Jim Smith of Zionsville, Indiana. And Jim says, I planted Deadly Dozen in a small plot this fall. The deer have been hitting it hard. I am very happy with the product. My question is how to set it up for next year. I am hoping I can frost seed buckwheat into a late snow this winter. Then let the buckwheat keep my weeds down so I can kill it and replant Deadly Dozen again in the fall. Will that work, or do I need to chemically kill off the Deadly Dozen in the spring and till in the buckwheat? Well, Jim, that's a great question, and I'll tell you why I picked your question. Real World has now got a soil builder product. It's going to be a pilot product for 2022, and we got so many questions about people that like our fall planted blends like Deadly Dozen, but they want to know, what do I do in the spring to keep the weeds down all summer? And we've been working and we've tested and tested and tested. I know Dwayne Hopkins has worked really hard on this to come up with this blend. I think I've got about 6 different test plots on my farm right now.
I have it here.
Yeah, so things have come together. And to answer your question, you know, your idea with buckwheat would certainly work. Dwayne mixed in some various seed species that could be frost seeded. And the key here is to get ahead of that weed growth. You know, that first flush of weeds that comes on early in the spring. We wanted to get our crop established before those weeds take over. So you got something good growing in that plot for the summer. And there's really 3 purposes of that soil builder blend. First of all, we want to keep the weed competition down, so you don't have weeds in your plot going to seed and everything, and you have to deal with them before fall. The second thing is, you know, we want to build that soil. So some of the seed species that are in this blend are legumes that are going to put nitrogen in the soil. Others have a lot of organic matter, so we will put organic matter back in the soil and make it a more productive plot for that fall planted blend. And then the third thing is we want to get those deer coming to that plot in the spring and summer. We want them to associate that plot with food year round. So, you know, you get that soil builder blend coming up early in the spring and through the summer, the deer start hitting that plot. And then when you switch over in the fall and you terminate that plot and you get to your fall planted harvest salad, Deadly Dozen, whatever it is you decide to plant, you get that, and the deer are already used to coming to that plot. You know, you've improved the soil, and that's a good route to go. There's 2 different ways you can go about it. If my personal favorite would be to spray and terminate that plot, and then immediately go in with a no-till drill like the Genesis drill, and you know, drill in your fall planted. So as that soil builder blend is dying off from the chemical that you sprayed on it, almost immediately that the fall planted blend is coming on, and that would be my approach. Now, one thing that I need to caution you about is that Deadly Dozen has some brassica type plants in there. You know, your turnips, sugar beets, radishes, and things like that. And you need to work in a rotation somehow. Don't plant those things several years in a row. And to be honest, I would not do it more than 2 years in a row at max. And rotate something else in that mix, like soybeans or whatever. But you need to break that cycle. You can't just keep planting the same plant in the same plot year after year after year, or there's just a lot of different pests and
Especially
disease
brassicas.
issues. Yep.
Especially brassicas.
Right.
Even if you're only putting a fall plot in, switch to clover or switch to harvest salad or something like that. That's just going to change it up. The next episode of It's Time to Get Real that we're probably going to be recording later this week or the beginning of next week is going to go in detail about the product itself of the new soil builder product and different opportunities to use it. I'm going to be utilizing it this year in a soybean field that I've had in soybeans too many years. And I'm going to, instead of going back to a spring plot, I'm going to put the soil builder in there and then come back with just a fall product on that same plot. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize that. But again, the goal here is to keep weeds down, build nitrogen in your soil, and then prepare for a fall plot. So great question. And stay tuned to the next episode of It's Time to Get Real that we'll publish here in the next week or two that will talk in detail about that. So great question.
Okay,
All
our
right.
next question comes from Joe Acera. I hope I said your name right, Joe. If not, I apologize. But Joe is from South Haven, Michigan. He says, "Hey Don, listen to your podcast. Think it's great what y'all are doing. You even got me reading the Bible. Had a two-part question. If you had a 40 with solid thick timber, would you open some areas to bedding grass or leave it thick timber cover? The second is, do you think that the internet is like the tree of knowledge and all the devices are like forbidden fruit? Because the more we seem to want to know everything, we end up hurting ourselves sometimes more than if we just learned the property through good hunting and couple seasons. But we jumped the gun because we learned that it worked for this guy, but don't take into account that you're in a complete different situation. And if we would have never bit into that fruit and would have never learned about it and wouldn't have set unrealistic goals because we were wanting to be like that guy with the one checkerboard square, because that ended up destroying a lot more good properties because of this." Okay, Joe, first question. Let me go back here and look at my notes. What was your first? So if I had a 40 that was nothing but timber, would I clear some of it and replace it with switchgrass or something like that, bedding grass? I would not. I never recommend that my clients um, tear out one form of cover and replace it with another. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. And good thick wooded cover is as good as anything for bedding cover. But to go in there and clear it out, you're looking at a multi-year process. And during that multi-year process, you're losing a lot of cover. You're putting a lot of human intrusion on the property, and you're adding a lot of labor and a lot of expense. And at the end of the day, you still got 40 acres of cover. And it's one thing if you've got open ground that you're trying to convert to cover as quickly as possible, then absolutely, you want to plant switchgrass or bedding in a bag and create diverse cover. But to go in and wipe out one form of cover and plant another is just something that I hardly ever recommend. In fact, right off the top of my head, I can't remember ever recommending anyone do that. Let's see, what's the second part of your question? Is the internet like the tree of knowledge and forbidden fruit? Well,
I read it on
sure
the internet, so it has to be true.
The last thing I would call the internet is the tree of knowledge. I would call it the tree of misinformation, if anything, because I think you make a very good point. There is so much. There's some good material out there too. There's some good information, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. And you got to, first of all, you need to take a look at where it's coming from, and what's that person's track record. What's their success? I mean, there is just, it's like whitetail consultants today. There's not a day goes by hardly that I don't get on social media and someone else has decided that, hey, I'm a whitetail consultant now. Okay, well, what have you done with your life? I mean, why would somebody hire you? And I'm not saying there's not good ones out there, because there's some good ones out there, but there's a lot of guys that need to pay their dues before they hang their shingle out and go into business. And when the information is put out there, if it's put out there with someone with a good track record, then you need to compare your situation with their situation. It could be totally different. Maybe they own, I don't know, hundreds of acres in Iowa and you own 20 acres in Michigan. Well, you're not going to be able to accomplish the same thing. And the smaller the property, the more critical little details are. And
Right.
so I get exactly what you're saying about the internet, but the last thing I would call the internet is the tree of knowledge.
I think what he was alluding to also is that I think he mentioned that it's people want a quick fix. They have a property and they listen to something on the internet and then just say, okay, well, why didn't I get the results of the next year? No matter what the plan is, it takes years to put the pieces in place. And I think our society in general just expects such quick results from anything that they do. It has to be a little bit bigger picture. There's people out there that hunt and they love public land hunting, and there's people like us that you get to the point you enjoy the land management projects almost as much as you do the hunting, because we're adapting our property for specific goals of mature bucks. And when you see that come together, whether you shoot one or not, knowing that I have 30 acres and I'm keeping a 6-year-old buck on there year after year, that's something pretty special.
Yeah, and this really brings up something I just thought of. I had a particular client one time who hired me to come put a plan together for their property, and I did, and I'll tell you what, it was a really nice property. Great guys, a man and his son owned the property, or I think the father owns the property, but the son hunts there some too. And I put a detailed plan together. And when I put a plan together, every one of my plans is unique. It's unique to that property. And sometimes, a property may not need a whole lot. And I'll say, you should be able to do this in one season. A year from now, you should start seeing results. You should be able to get these projects done before next season really easy. But in this particular case, it was about a 5-year plan. And I said in my written plan to him, I said, you need to think of this as a 5-year plan. And because it's going to take that long for all these changes to be made. There were some pretty significant changes to the property. And then after 5 years, you should start seeing a steady increase in the age class and the size of the bucks that are on there. Well, 2 years in, I was contacted and, hey, we're not happy what's going on here, and this and that. And I said, well, you know what? Next time I'm through that area, I'll stop in and check things out and see what's going on. Well, I stopped by that property and looked, and the son wasn't there, but the father was. And great people. I'm not bashing these folks at all. They were great people, but it was just so obvious to me that the son had spent way too much time on the internet. Excuse me. There was just all kinds of things that were totally opposite, that went totally against what I was recommending. For example, the security of the sanctuary. Stay out. It's got to be totally free of human seclusion or human intrusion. And yet I was seeing trail cameras throughout the sanctuary and things like that to tell me that they'd been in there. And that's just one example. So that was a case where I think the son had spent too much time on the internet. So the internet is not the tree of knowledge.
All right. We'll just leave it at that. As you get your drink there, I'll queue up and hopefully we can see our third question from David Butler. This is a two-parter, fairly long one. Might be good to just answer the first one before you go into the second one there.
That'd probably be best. So David Butler is from Normal, Illinois, and he says, Don and Terry, I really enjoy the podcast, and it's always informative but entertaining as well. My first question is for Don, and I'm going to probably get him riled up a bit. That's why I picked it, by the way, David. My second question is for Don and Terry. Okay, question 1. Don, we have all heard your opinion on fixed blade broadheads versus the garbage expandables. Well, we got that out of the way, garbage. During your live podcast in Kentucky, you referenced hitting a deer in the shoulder with expandables and also gave an example of one hunter on your property having one bounce off a buck's shoulder. During this, you stated lots of folks tried to argue about shot placement. And as you said, we would love to hit them perfect all the time, but it just doesn't happen. So my question is this: if shooting a fixed blade head increases your chances of recovery, if you hit a buck in the shoulder due to potential of increased penetration, would it be fair to say that a large cut expandable shot out of a proper setup give you a better chance of recovery if you hit the deer back? I guess you mean in the guts. Well, you know what I find, and I'm just going to guess here that David shoots expandables, or he wouldn't be throwing out this argument. But I find it really ironic that someone shooting expandables is not using the old excuse of shot placement. If you ever get on the internet and you get into a debate on expandable versus fixed blades, the expandable guys are always it's about shot placement. It's about shot placement. It's all about shot placement. Blah blah blah. Well, yeah, it is about shot placement, but you know what? Most guys don't want to limit their shots to where they're really accurate. I mean, how many guys out there will not take a shot over 25, 30 yards? Very few. Most of them will shoot 50 if they see a deer they want to shoot. Um, but to get to your point, if you hit a deer with a cut on impact, solid one piece head in the shoulder or in the guts, as you're suggesting, you should kill that deer. Either way, with an expandable, you don't have the option of error on either side. You can error one side and be fine because you're going to rip a big hole through his guts, and yeah, he's going to die, but he's going to die anyway. If you hit him in the shoulder, you're just going to wound him. So I don't like that argument at all. I think it's ridiculous. I think you just need to throw your junk garbage expandables in the trash and use a real broadhead. And then if you happen to hit him in the shoulder, guess what? You're going to kill him as long as you don't try shooting too far. And if you hit him in the guts, guess what? You're going to kill him. You just need to give that arrow time to work and allow that deer to lay down and die, and you're going to get him too. So I just think that's a bad argument, a flawed argument, and there is no excuse for an expandable, including this one.
Well, I'd like your opinion on this because I've used both. You've never shot an expandable, so you've only seen what expandables do with other people that's potentially shot them on your property. That deer right there was a gut shot with an expandable, and it pulled 4 feet of guts out the exit hole. And I've unfortunately seen another person on my property shoot another deer through the guts. And based on just those two, and trust me, I don't have scientific data to back it up. Those two shots that were shot both in the gut, the one with an expandable broadhead pulled guts out the exit hole. The fixed blade didn't pull guts out the exit hole. Now, I don't know if that's because of the head, the angle, the fletching, whatever. But again, I'm a recovering mechanical person, and trust me, I've been in situations that luckily it didn't cost me a deer, but I switched before it did because I saw the lack of performance in certain shots. And I think what you're really saying is you shoot a buck in the gut, your recovery of that deer becomes how good of a tracker you are and your patience to stay out until it's the right time, not the broadhead you use.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go to a second part question here. I'll put it back up on the screen for you to read.
Question 2. I hear you talk about lack of human intrusion being the number one thing that a mature buck wants. I own 55 acres, and since day one, I have designated plus or minus 25 acres in the center of my property as a sanctuary. This area already had deer using it as a bedding area, and it offers thick cover with lots of topography. Aside from going in to retrieve a deer or perform habitat work during the off season, it remains completely void of human intrusion. My question is this: during the off season, how important do you feel limiting human intrusion is in my sanctuary and on the rest of my property? As for human intrusion, do you feel that human scent blowing into the sanctuary would also count as intrusion? You offer several master courses and tour your property. Do you think that has a negative impact in regards to human intrusion? Thanks, David Butler. David, let me answer your last question first. regarding the master courses, and does that put too much pressure on my property? We don't go into my sanctuary at all. And in fact, there's a couple of stand sites that we observe from a little bit of a distance, because those stands are right on the edge of a sanctuary. And there's some that are on the edge of the sanctuary that we do go and look right at. But there's a couple that we observe back 100 yards or so, from an open field, close enough that the students get a good feel for the situation, where the stand's at, how I'm using the wind, how the buck's using the wind, and all that. But we do not go into the sanctuary. The other question is, how important is it to limit human intrusion in the off season? Well, I think it's very important for the entire year. I think what you're doing on your property is absolutely what I do. You limit your intrusion into the sanctuary except to retrieve deer or perform habitat work. I would just say that when I perform my habitat work in my sanctuary, I don't drag it on. If I got a project that's going to take 10 hours to accomplish, I do 10 hours in one day. I don't drag it on to 3 or 4 days. I get in, get it done, take help with me, whatever I got to do, get it done, get out, and stay out. Because if you push those deer out that first day, there's a good chance that night they're coming back, and the next day they're going to come back. But if you go in there and run them out 3 or 4 different times, well, it's no longer a sanctuary. So I think that human intrusion factor, it carries right on through the entire year, not just during hunting season. Do you feel human scent blowing into the sanctuary would also count as intrusion? Um, that's kind of a tough question to answer. It kind of depends on the layout of the property. For example, if your sanctuary lays right up next to somebody's house and yard or whatever, it's going to be about impossible for those deer to never smell people. But I think those deer recognize where people are supposed to be, and and not represent danger to them, and where people are not supposed to be and do represent danger. So a big part of it is, where's that human scent coming from? Is it coming from a direction that the deer smell it all the time, or is it a situation that's rare to happen? In that case, it's a lot of pressure. One more thing that I want to throw out there, David, based on your submission here, was you have a 55-acre property, and roughly 25 acres of it is sanctuary. You're looking at less than half of your acreage on that property as being sanctuary. And if I had a 55-acre property, probably 40 to 45 acres of that is going to be sanctuary. The only thing that really would not be sanctuary is maybe an access point or two and food plots. Other than that, it'd be sanctuary. Now, I don't know how your property lays. Maybe you got a 20-acre ag field on the property, and it can't be sanctuary. You need the crop. You can't plant it in switchgrass, or so. I don't know your exact situation, but just for the listeners out there, if I had a 55-acre property and it was just for deer hunting, that was the main goal. I didn't need income from a crop field or anything like that. At least 40 and probably 45 to 50 acres of that is going to be sanctuary. The bigger, the better when it comes to sanctuaries.
Yeah, because if you're staying out of it, you're going to hold more deer with more acreage that you have. The more deer you have, the more choices you have. It's a very simple concept. But what he's talking about with a 25-acre sanctuary is very similar to my setup. My property is not very big, but I don't know. You can tell me I'm wrong, Don, but I think that normal practices of whether it be a house or if somebody has cattle running on the property where they're driving back on a tractor or something like that, I think deer get a little used to that. I think there's something different with us driving a piece of farm equipment on the property and the scent of that blowing into the sanctuary versus us walking 40 yards into the sanctuary to hang a trail camera and potentially bumping a deer. That's two complete different scenarios there.
Oh, absolutely. And being on a piece of equipment is doesn't put near the pressure on a property that someone walking on foot does. Deer hear that equipment coming from a distance. They've got time to decide how they're going to react. And I can't tell you how many times I've checked trail cameras on a four-wheeler or a UTV or whatever, and I'd spook deer minutes before I pulled the card. You know, I get my pictures. I'm walking up there to pull the card, and minutes before I was there pulling the card, sometimes only a couple minutes, there's deer running past or sneaking away. You know, I never even knew those deer were there. Those deer heard me coming from far enough away that they were able to slip away, and that's not near as bad as walking and then slipping right up on them and busting them out of their bed at 20 yards.
You know, funny story, David, when Don first decided that he wanted to do the master classes, and we were talking about the idea of how we were going to do it, and you know, he was asking if I could come up and help with it, and we were kind of laying it out. I was absolutely shocked that Don was going to walk people around his property. And then when we actually laid out kind of the route of how we're doing, there's one specific point where we come up in a pinch between the switchgrass and the wooded cover. If you watch the Smoky Hunt video, we basically stand where Smoky was shot, but we don't walk into the switchgrass. And kind of our list of assignments that we have during the master class, we allow students to climb up into the Smoky blind, but the opening in the fence that goes into the wooded cover, my job as we get on the tour at that place is to stand there and not let anybody go through the gap in the fence, because we've actually had people try to walk down into that cover before. So that's my job when we're taking the tour of the farm, is to I'm like a bouncer, you know, at a nightclub, you know, not letting people in. So it's not like you think. We do protect the sanctuary when we have people walking around.
Yep.
And that's the reason you picked the dates, because that time of year is basically the last time that because you'll also shed hunt around that same time. So you have a very short window that your farm gets intrusion for burning native grasses, shed hunting, and the master classes, all within just a couple weeks of each other, and then it's completely off limits the rest of the time.
And yeah, it's that time of the year where a lot of the weather's breaking. You know, it's been winter, and we're starting to get some spring weather, and those bucks especially, they start dispersing out away from the property, and they don't come back till the next fall. So the timing and the route that we take were both well planned.
You know, I had a buddy of mine get on me because of how nasty I've talked about skin hunters in the past. And I mean, no disrespect to coon hunters, I really don't. But this dialogue right here is a perfect example that we're trying to do something that's different. We're basically dedicating our farms to bucks 5 years and older. And I think it's hard for people with multiple hobbies to accept that they can't have it both ways. And it's not being disrespectful to the people that like to turkey hunt, cut firewood for you know, some people have to use the same woods on their farm that's supposed to be their sanctuary, but they got to cut wood in there every year to heat their house. You know, it's just a choice that you have to make. You can't have everything. And what we're talking about is taking land management practices to the next level for these 5.5-year-old or older bucks. And you just have to basically pick your battles of what's most important to you.
It's a matter of priorities, and there's no right or wrong answer. But if your priority is killing bucks 5 and older, you got to do things different. And it goes right back to the previous question about the internet being the tree of knowledge. There's a lot of misinformation, and well, it's actually stuff that will work in the right situation. And if your goals are somewhat less than a 5.5-year-old buck, if you want to kill the giants and you want to do it consistently, you got to play by a different set of rules.
Yep. It's just, you know, for the people that I've made mad because of my coon hunter comments, I'm all for you coon hunting. But you got to do it on a different piece of property. It's not going to be the same property that you're trying to manage for 5.5-year-old bucks.
If you're a coon hunter, please go to Kentucky and stay out of Illinois.
Oh, I'm going to get a text message off of that one. All right. I think we got one more question I'm going to put up on the screen here.
Yeah, this one comes from Nick Steffen from Stewartson, Illinois, just down the road from me. Nick says, Don and Terry, the property we just bought has the invasive autumn olive on it. My question is, do you go in and cut it down and spray to kill it, or do you leave it and let it grow up and get very thick for cover? If you cut it down, when is the best time to go in and do it without pushing deer off? Nick, that is a fantastic question. And it's one that there really is not a good answer for it, because if you're going to fight them invasives, in my opinion, it's a battle that you're never going to end and you're never going to win. You're going to be doing it for the rest of your life, and there's always going to be some there that you're going to have to cut and spray. I would much rather have natives. There's a lot of native plants that will provide just as good a cover. I would never encourage anyone to propagate some of these invasives. And for the record, giant miscanthus is not invasive. But when you're talking about Russian olive, autumn olive, bush honeysuckle, those plants are extremely invasive. I do have one property that I hunt. I don't own it, don't lease it. It's just I've got permission to hunt there. And in the past probably 5 years, the bush honeysuckle has really taken over that property. And to be honest, it's actually made the property better because it's a very small property anyway. It's one that we visit on the master course, Terry. That's that long, narrow piece. We don't get out and walk it, but we stop along the road and talk about it. That piece has been taken over by bush honeysuckle, and it's provided a lot more cover. And the good thing about it is the deer that bedded there, once the leaves would fall in end of October, 1st November, it was really hard to slip into that property for an afternoon hunt because the deer would see you coming. But this bush honeysuckle allows you to do that because it's so thick and it stays green so much longer. So if there is a positive, it would be that.
When you cut it, a lot of those invasives, when you cut it back, it actually stimulates the growth. Is there a certain time of year that's better to cut it than not? If Nick's goal is to open some up to say put a food plot in, what's some tips there?
Well, I typically I've cut it, and what I like to do is I like to cut deer paths through. That stuff gets so thick and so nasty that you can go in there and you can cut a path, and those deer will follow right through that path. Now you're going to have to come in about every 2 to 3 years and reopen that path up, but I like to do it in the winter, and then I spray those stumps with a mixture of Garlon 4 and diesel fuel. Use 3 parts diesel fuel, 1 part Garlon 4. It's pretty.
I'm sure the EPA is listening right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell them where I'm doing it, so they're going to have a hard time searching the whole countryside to see where I'm spraying this. But it's actually a pretty common mixture that a lot of land management guys use, and that'll kill it. But the problem is the plants around that you're not cutting and spraying, they shoot those roots out, and a new sprout comes up from the roots, and it just ends up taking over where you just cleared.
Yeah, so a mulching head would be a fantastic tool for something like that. I know my property in Illinois, we're fighting the same thing. We opened it up, the lane to drive in and park in the wintertime, and by the time you went there to drill my food plots for me, it had already grown back in just that amount of time. So it's a constant battle. But I think that you have an opportunity, like Don said, to funnel deer because that stuff gets so thick. That's one of the projects that Don and I are going to do on my property this year, is actually create a corridor for the deer to use through it. So we're going to turn a negative into an advantage and try to use that to funnel a little bit. But that's a good question.
Yeah, it is, for sure. It's a battle that you'll never win, and it'll never end.
All right. So that's the last question we had for this episode. I hope that the audio is somewhat decent on this and the video is decent for the people that are watching on YouTube. But I don't want to take away from the quality of the people listening on the podcast or the platforms calling in. I do want to tell people who want to listen to the It's Time to Get Real segment that we filmed with Don West-Delks and Dwayne Hopkins about supply chain and growing season in the food plot industry. That is going to air immediately at the conclusion of this episode. You don't have to hang up or do anything else. It's going to play right on the back side of it. So the next time you hear from us, Don will hopefully have had a quick trip out to Iowa to hunt. I'm going to probably head up to Illinois around New Year's. So good grief, we might even be in person if you're back in time. I don't know what time you're going to be in, what days you're going to be in Iowa. But yeah, I hope everybody had a great Christmas. And again, please be patient with us as we're trying to expand and get a little bit more content out. But I don't know, Don, you got a New Year's resolution that you're going to share with us next week?
I don't have yet. I could probably come up with something.
How about we both kill a gross booner or a net booner next year and years over 200, and I'll just take a 180. I don't necessarily need a 200.
Well, that'd be great. I think the things are pointing pretty positive for me to kill a couple of good ones next year, and I've even got a couple of bucks that I've set some camera. Well, one buck you seen, Terry, when you was here, place I've
Twice.
never hunted before. You just happened to catch him crossing the road in the dark one night, and I went and got permission on both sides of the road where you seen him cross and put 4 cameras out. I haven't checked those cameras, and you thought that was probably a 180 incher. So I know I've got about a dozen bucks right now potentials for next year, and there's a couple others. I got another tip from a good friend that I'm not going to mention his name on here because I don't want his friends hounding him for the information.
Keep
So
it
I've got
quiet.
2 bucks I've never seen that are both supposed to be really good, and who knows? It's pointing up for next year for sure.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody's support. Please go back out and either watch the YouTube video of It's Time to Get Real or stay tuned for the airing of that immediately following that. This episode, as Don gets done taking us out with our sponsors.
All right. We want to thank biofarm.com, Victory Chevrolet, 360 Hunting Blinds, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, wildlifefarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. God bless everyone. Have a happy new year.